what do you do right now? What do people know you as?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people know me as Dan Martell's creative director, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what put me on the map for sure. And yeah, I started working for Dan 7 years ago, and back then he had a fraction of the audience that he has today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I helped him build that in the background, but I think it's kind of a Trojan horse, right? Where on the front, Dan looks like a successful businessman and successful family man, and obviously he has his fitness together. But I think the underlying message or Trojan horse, if you would say, of his whole movement is personal development and mindset development, which is what you talk about on this pod, right? High performance habits,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think working with Dan 100% molded me into the person I am today. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for working closely with him for 7 years. And yeah, I believe that all that growth that happened in the last 18 months of us going essentially from unknown to known around the world came on the back end of us having those high performance habits, right?
Mm-hmm. Those are key things, man. I mean, you're a young guy. You got a beard, but like
Yeah.
you're like 20 something, like early 20s, right?
Yes, sir.
Like,
Yeah. 23.
dude, I in 23, I had no idea who I was or what I was about. The fact
Yeah.
that
Same
you
here.
have this understanding about some of this stuff is phenomenal. Like, where did this all begin though? Like, what sparked this entrepreneurship journey? Because you're
Yeah.
an entrepreneur within Dan's company. Like, you're an
100%.
entrepreneur, like Patrick David says.
Yeah.
And
100%. Yeah. I mean, I always joke with people, Dan ruined me for life. Like I would not work for another entrepreneur because I know that he gives me a lot of freedom that other
yeah.
people won't give me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it all like people look at me now. They're like, you're 23. I got to catch up because I talk to a lot of people that are in their early 20s, and what they don't understand is I started young, right? I, I I'm an old soul. People joke that I act 30, and yeah, it's just because I started young. I give a lot of credit to my dad. My dad was a obviously successful entrepreneur in the insurance space, and he exposed me to a lot of people, environments, seminars, events. Like I was 14 years old going to business seminars, right?
Yeah.
Where my classmates were, going out drinking on weekends, right? I was out in a theater with my dad, and that really sparked the curiosity in my soul, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
I saw these people doing great, and I wanted to get involved, and that's what propelled me to kind of chase this entrepreneurial journey, and then landed me on Dan's team.
was was SAS near the SAS Academy? Was that headquarters around your house? How in the world did you even find that in the first place?
Yeah, funny enough, like Dan's from a small town on the east coast of Canada, and so am I. So it was hilarious that we lived in the same city because he just moved back from San Francisco because he wanted to raise his kids in somewhere like less busy, and he came back to his hometown. And I grew up in that hometown. I grew up in the village outside of that town.
Hmm.
Uh, 4,000 people, no stoplights, one store, and somehow, some way, through a couple people that knew my dad, I ended up working for his videographer at the time, and really grew like under his company. And then yeah, when SAS Academy was created, I think in early 2016 or 2017, that's when I came on and applied for the job, did the whole thing, test project, everything he talks about is in his book, and came on as his videographer, and that was the start of all of it, right?
Mm-hmm. But you had a knack for film, or did you kind of just get pushed into that? Like, where was that creative eye forged?
Yeah, yeah, it's cool because I always thought I was going to be an insurance person like my dad. Like I never thought I was going to be a creative. Um, I read a bunch of books on finance when I was younger, and I was just
Mm-hmm.
really like I was going to do the path like university, go in finance, get investment banking or insurance, and that's when I started snowboarding a lot and started messing around with GoPros and started editing, short videos. And that's where I fell in love with filmmaking and telling stories visually. And I realized that I could make money doing it. I remember the first time that I ever made money with video was when my dad introduced me to one of his friends that needed a 60-second video. And I remember I charged him $100 cash. And he gave me that $100, and I made that video, and I was like, that's the easiest money I've ever made. Because at that point I was mowing lawns for $10 an hour or working in a pizza shop. I was still young. I was 14 at the time. And yeah, after that first $100, it was kind of like a bug, a scratch that I had to itch every single time. Right. And that's when I caught it and didn't look back since.
How do you equate the creative edge of Sam to consistency, like you're talking about, and the habits and disciplines? Because more often than not, like when I see a creative, it's like the opposite direction. They
100%.
hate standards. They hate habits. It's like when I feel like. And how do you balance that? How did you end up creating those elements together?
It's actually funny that you mentioned that, because I was telling that exact statement to my team earlier, because everybody believes that creativity comes from space. And I do agree with that. But a lot of people think that space means watching TV, scrolling on TikTok, waking up late, not keeping the commitments that you make yourself. Like if you look at my calendar today, it's pretty slammed. I'll go full out for 8 hours a day, but I have moments. For me, it's the 2 hours between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. to think and create. And that's where I don't have anything work related, where it's activities in my calendar, and I allow myself to think, dream, analyze. And I think that's where a lot of my creative ideas come from, is those 2 hours. And I think for a lot of people that think that they think that constraints impacts their creativity negatively. But I'd be willing to bet that I know every single time in my life that I've introduced constraints, it breeds creativity, because you have things to work around, right? If you put guide rails in place, you have a box to solve problems within, and you're not paralyzed by 1,000 solutions. And I think that's my biggest strength as like you said, an entrepreneur within Dan's company, is I excel when I put those guide rails in place and I solve problems with my team.
How many people are under you right now, Sam?
Yeah, right now we're still growing. I think at the time, 12 people on the media team. We've got 10 people on the revenue side. So yeah, pretty big organization.
Yeah, man. How do you balance trying to figure out what the direction is with the creative side of it? Because I think many people are like, I want to create what you guys have built. There's some things that Dan teaches for sure, the amount and quantity and the tactics of stuff, but how do you create this? Because I know you right now, you're also connecting with the viral thing too, with Adley. You're learning a bunch. Like we're all obsessive learners here on the podcast for sure. What are some of the tweaks of things that you've had to really forge over the last 18 months to really kind of create some of that stuff that you're doing right now?
I think people overcomplicate it. We have a pretty simple process that we take all our creative through, and it's essentially a 3-step process. Number one is measure, right? A lot of people don't want to measure because they don't want to see how bad they are at the thing. I always tell my team, like, I don't care if your number is red. I just want to know that you're going to make it green, right? So first of all, measure and track, right? So measure it every day. And I think before we started the podcast, you mentioned that if I want to talk about fitness, and I use this analogy all the time, right? If you want to get leaner, right? You want to lose weight, every day you got to step on the scale, measure your weight, right? And the more often, the more accurately you can step on that scale, the better results you're going to get, right? Because you're going to act differently if you measure your weight at 6 a.m. one day and then the next day after you eat a couple meals, right? It's not accurate. So for us, it's measure with precision. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what are the fundamentals? And we distill those to principles. That's the things that we know are true. And that comes from getting results, but it also comes from analyzing other people's content and extracting what made him successful. So that's the same thing in the fitness space as me going to a gym and looking at the biggest guy in the gym, or the leanest guy in the gym in my case, and looking at the way that he let's say I was just some fly on the wall and I counted his reps, right? I just looked at what he did and I followed him home and I saw what he ate, right? And luckily for us, we can go find that information on YouTube. Dan has a great how to get abs in 90 days video where he literally shows the whole process. But for us, it's number one, you measure it, you track it, step on the scale. Number two is the fundamentals. You know what you need to do. For fitness, it's progressive overload and macro tracking, right? I'm tracking my food, and I'm in the gym training progressive overload, which means I'm adding more weight every single time that I go in the gym. And the third thing is we lock in the learning and we go find external information. That's the extra. So for us, like I always tell my team, if you're reliant on the information that's within these four walls, we're fucked. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but we're not okay if you're asking me for advice on how to do your role, right? I want you guys to go outside, and that's where, you know, those masterminds like Adley's a great one. I have a couple more consultants on my side that I work with that, you know, really expand my knowledge and are looking around the corner for me, because I know, like, I don't know what I need to know to get to the next level. And that's the third step, right, is to, in the fitness space, go hire a coach, right? Go get external advice. Go find somebody that's been there, that's done that, and don't just watch a YouTube video on it, right? You can learn, sure, you can get all the information that you need, but what I know is that you won't take action if you're not held accountable, right? And for me, those external people are the people that take me from being average to somebody who shows up every day.
100%.